All right, everybody. Part 2 of Eli and Rebekah's testimony. Part 1, we discussed how each of them grew up and which community they came from, both Swartz Trooper Amish. And then, later on, as they are now former Amish, God brought them together. This Part 2 will cover the story of how God brought you two together.
Yep. Oh, and it's brought to you by JC Towing and Recovery.
Part 2 is brought to you. Yep. Thank you, by the way. Part 2 is brought to you by JC's Towing and Recovery LLC out of Delta Junction, Alaska.
Yep.
So, how in the heck did this? I got your story and your story both. Rebekah and Eli left the Amish. You went and moved in with that New Order style Amish aunt, and you're where at that time?
Well, I'm living in a small town in Minnesota, and I'm
Ohio, Minnesota.
Yep. Way apart. It's 900 and something miles. Almost 1,000 miles apart.
Wow.
And didn't know each other ever. My dad talked about Shettlers, and I had met some Shettlers in Minnesota that were loco and thought they were crazy, and she had neighbors or something that were Millers, and she thought Millers are loco. And
I'm never marrying a Miller. Never am I marrying a Miller.
Yes. Oh,
you say you're never going to marry a Miller.
Oh, yeah, and I never thought of marrying a Shetler. I mean, this family, oh man, they were some show-offs.
Yeah.
Oh shoot,
that's absolutely amazing.
Anyway, then I worked sale barns, and 6 months after leaving, I'm this old-fashioned Amish kid, always loved old stuff, and 6 months in, I got my driver's license. Before a year, I was driving a brand new truck and a brand new trailer, 30-foot cattle trailer, fancy lights on it, and had Miller, like Bud Light Miller farms on the side of the on the neck, and brand spanking new. And I'm hauling cattle, working sale barns, busy life, and absolutely loved it. And then anytime people would leave, I was helping people out. I'd on the weekends drive all the way to Kentucky, pick somebody up, and bring them up here, and we'd find jobs for them. Well, one thing that we could do is sale barns. They always had work. So I'd take them there for a little bit, get them started, and they'd go on somewhere else.
Gotcha.
But there's one girl, sister to my buddy up there. She comes up there and she says she wants to work sale barns. Fine. Well, I need a place to live. Well, we leave 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning, go to work until 10 o'clock at night, 2 in the morning sometimes. So it was just not decent for me to always have to drive somewhere and drop her off.
Yeah.
So I says, I got a 4-bedroom house and I'm living alone. Just come down here and stay here.
Yeah.
So she's staying there. And what was weird is her family, we both came from Minnesota. Her family moved to Kentucky.
Okay.
I think I or her brother had brought her to Minnesota. Anyway, we're back in Minnesota. Now my wife's parents moved from Ohio to Kentucky.
Okay.
Now that brought them 2 families to one community. One from Minnesota, one from Ohio to Kentucky. She had left, and this girl had left. There's 2 of both families outside the Amish, and they figured out that they both have family in the same community, so they started chatting.
Okay.
And I always wanted to be married, wanted a girlfriend, but it didn't take me long to figure out that I can't imagine living with a complete outside woman.
Non-Amish culture girl.
And here was another thing. I was always rodeos, all that stuff. I was a cowboy. Nobody had ever seen me with a ball cap on. I always wore a cowboy hat.
Okay.
So I was straight cowboys, and that was the environment I was around. I'd go to rodeos, I'd meet these women, and it didn't take me at all any time to figure out these things are not what I want.
You just call them things.
Well,
you didn't want
most of these women that I was around were kind of things.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
It was wild coming from the Amish how they were. They were after the money. I had a nice truck and trailer, and they thought I had a lot of money, and
so you could have had.
I could have had
a girlfriend just like that.
Oh yeah, but they wanted my money.
Yeah.
I had money.
You were not about to let a worldly girl take it.
No, I was working. And I had bills, and I didn't mind it, but I didn't need those bills.
Gotcha.
And I figured out real quick that's what they're after.
Uh-huh.
So that, I was like, all right, to raise a family, I probably am going to end up with an ex-Amish.
Right.
And this girl working with me, she decides that it's time I get a girlfriend.
Okay.
Them two were chatting, and she's like, I'm going to hook you up.
Okay.
And she gives me her number, and I text her on my flip phone. I had a flip phone.
And at this point, I was so done with these English boys out here.
Yeah, she was running around in Ohio with these party guys.
So you had your taste.
So she had her taste.
Yeah.
And I was so done. I'm like, I want nothing to do with boys. I am done.
So it was kind of perfect timing for you two to meet at that
Yes.
moment.
Yeah.
Which she didn't even think she'd text anybody or talk to anybody anymore.
I wasn't even interested when Amanda
Hooked us up.
hooked us up. I was like,
So we hooked.
sure.
We started texting, and she was
I'm not
like,
texting him. If he's serious, he's gonna have to text me. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
You're waiting for him to say something. I'm not going to
Yeah.
approach him.
Exactly.
But it clicked so hard when we started texting
Uh-huh.
that within several months, what time of the year did we start texting?
We started texting in like August.
August.
Yeah.
By Thanksgiving.
No, it's October. Remember, over my birthday.
Okay, over her birthday. By that time, we wanted to meet, and I was in full
We never
swing.
met.
I was in full swing at work, and I was a worker. I didn't care about anything else.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't leave work and go on a trip right now, but we want to meet. I said, I'll pay your trip.
Mm-hmm.
You get on a train and you meet me up there in Minnesota. Now remember, she doesn't know anybody up there except this girl that I live with,
Right.
which is weird. You know,
Yeah.
we're living together.
I know. I questioned it.
Yes,
but-
I mean anybody would, but to
Yeah.
us, that's not what we had in mind.
Right.
And we were living together, and all right. And then the next thing is, she knows nobody up there,
I
and
know
she just
nobody.
gets in a train and heads up there.
I've
and
never
I-
been on a train ride myself.
No.
Never been traveling myself.
Well, you must have had some faith that God has given you the right man.
Well, that's kind of what it led to. I'm like, if God wants us to meet, He'll make a way. Like he'll
She
give me the
traveled-
courage. I had no fear whatsoever.
Yeah, and she wasn't scared. She travels up there on train, and right local there, we had a train station.
Mm-hmm.
I pull up there with a truck and trailer, park across the street, walk over there. She comes walking down, and I'm like, oh, there she is. And I just grab her bags, and we head to the truck. It could have been a kidnapping.
You didn't know.
She didn't
No.
know.
You didn't know his
But
motives.
No.
I felt so at peace and I felt so comfortable. I'm like,
It was God sent.
Let me ask you this. Did it give you more comfort and peace knowing that he's from the Amish culture?
yes.
Out there.
Yeah. That.
No.
I wanted
if
to
he-
point that out.
Yeah.
Now, if he would have been completely English, I would have been probably not.
Yeah.
But I
wanted to
knew-
point that out.
Yes.
I knew he was from the Amish, and I could tell when we talked on the phone,
Yeah.
his Amish
Very-
accent was very
Yes.
legit.
Very legit. That makes a quick difference. You can tell.
And, you know, just our conversations on the phone, I was like, yeah,
And we'd be
I
talking
really
until
wanna-
one of us would fall asleep at night.
Okay, so you definitely knew you didn't connect. You didn't
Yes.
connect.
Yes.
Yeah, but it was still a little crazy.
Yeah.
But
I
I
picked
never-
her up, and we went. Remember, I was a worker. I never thought of nothing else. We went, picked her up, went 5 miles down the road, and grabbed a load of cattle, a small load of cattle. Went to my place, and got a short nap before it was 5 in the morning,
Something like that.
and then we had 2 hours to work Saturday morning.
Okay.
2 hours up there, worked all day. That night, my boss hands me a cart. He says, these are on all 2 hours south, these cattle. We hauled cattle all night.
All
8
night.
o'clock the next morning, he calls me, which I normally didn't work Sundays. I always made it a rule, I won't work Sundays, because you can get me any other day of the week. Sundays, no. He calls me and he's like, if you guys want to be hanging out together and you want something to do and make a little money, sweet talk me, and I got cattle to move. And he was sorting on Sundays, and we got moved cattle all day Sunday. We still hadn't slept.
Wow.
All day Sunday, and finally Sunday night, I took her out on a date. Still had no sleep. And we went and had our first date after working for about 30 some hours straight. And that was our meeting.
Uh-huh.
Busy guy.
I I remember he came and he grabbed my luggage. I, walked off the train there, and he grabbed my luggage, and he was gone.
Yeah, I was a go-getter.
You're like, I gotta keep up with this guy.
Yeah, I'm like, what is up with this?
I don't know
guy?
what she was thinking signing up with me. I mean, I was a go-getter.
Well, you were cute, so that helped.
That's worldly thinking.
Okay, excuse me, I better hang in there. Yeah.
But anyway, it just, I don't know, we met and it's like we've known each other for, I don't know, it just
clicked.
It just makes
It
sense.
really
August
did.
to October, you're already meeting. When are you getting married?
The next spring, we got in,
Yeah, the
Engaged.
following May 1st, we got engaged.
and then because of funds and tradition outside the Amish and all that, we made it another year.
We
before
didn't get married until then, a year later.
Yeah,
in
we got
June.
married then a year later in June, and still I lived in this house, big house, so we just stayed right there. Had a complete non-Amish wedding. We had no guidance from family, like we had no mom and dad to guide us how to do nothing. We had at this point still very little structure. We were Christians, but we had very little structure. We had no guidance like we do.
Right.
I feel like now back where we're from, there's guidance there.
Yeah.
There is everybody. I was the oldest of most any ex-Amish around. Now we got ex-Amish that are 30 years old. So when these 16-year-olds leave, if they want to follow a Christian lifestyle, they got guidance.
We
Yeah,
got a
much
little bit
easier.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I've always wanted to be for ex-Amish is a little bit of guidance for these people.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have that.
I mean, you guys were young. Now, what's the age difference between you guys?
2.5 years.
Oh, yeah, so you're almost
Yeah.
the same age.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And she left. Me and her left close to the same time, but she was 18 and I was 21.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't quite the same time, but close. When did you leave?
I left in the fall of
But what time? Which month do you think?
November. It was just before Thanksgiving.
So I had left in.
You left the following year.
All right, I had left a year after
Yeah.
in August then, so it was close to a year difference. Not quite, but close to a year difference that we left.
Yeah.
But she's 18 decides to leave. I'm 21 and decided to leave. So it's kind of odd, different times that we
Yeah.
decide to leave.
Isn't that interesting?
And never like it was just plain God to get us
Yeah.
together because
Absolutely.
I mean it's just and my ex is married to her brother, which
Oh, wow.
is really odd. The way, like, why didn't me and her meet? Like, why? It doesn't make any sense really. And then somehow in a complete different way, him, my ex and her brother meet, and we get married at the same time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this was his ex of like 3 years.
3 years. We were gonna get married. We were lit like the Amish get engaged 2 weeks before the wedding
Right.
at where we're from. But we were what we now here would call engaged. We had planned to get married by that next spring or whatever. We were gonna get married.
Wow, that is interesting.
And because of that church split, is why we see the Swartz Troopers cannot get married outside Swartz Troopers.
Right.
Even our Swartz Troopers couldn't have got married to your people, even if your people would have allowed it.
Yeah. Wow.
Which your grandpa didn't want them because they smoked.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, I left the church and she didn't,
Mm.
and that broke us apart. She couldn't get married.
And now that ex ends up getting married to your brother.
Yes.
Yes. That same person gets married to my oldest brother.
Yeah.
What a journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could write a whole book.
Yeah.
And I'm forgetting half the stuff I went through. That breakup was a seriously trying time for me because I'm trying to do what's right.
Right.
You got to remember, I'm trying to live for God
Mhm.
and trying to live for the Amish,
Right.
and don't realize that that's two different things.
Mhm.
Where I was from, yeah, they make it sound like it's all for God, but if they really told the truth, it's for Grandpa.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They follow tradition
Yeah.
like crazy.
Absolutely.
So that really was a big struggle for me growing up
Mhm.
because I was so determined to do what's right.
Right.
I read from when I was 15 until I was 16. I read the New Testament all the way through,
Oh, wow.
and that's not very common for
You really wanted to.
I wanted to do what was right. I just didn't know how. So my search was on from a young age, but I didn't understand.
Well, hey, I appreciate you guys sharing everything you shared. The part 2 of how you guys met. I mean, just your story is fascinating. You guys should consider doing a book or something because that's just the timing and how everything worked out. It's fascinating to me. It's amazing how God was just orchestrating everything and allowed it to come into play.
Yep. So 2 years after we got married, or somewhere in there, is when Ida was born.
Yeah.
And we were really searching for a church. We wanted something. We didn't have that guidance.
Yeah.
We wanted something like that. So Amish wasn't the answer. We knew that.
Mm-hmm.
But we wanted something that is somewhat similar,
Right.
but not the same.
Mm-hmm.
So we found a Mennonite church that was close by. I had worked with a guy that was in the church, and he talked a lot of Bible is the way, like common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And we went there for at least 2 years.
Okay.
So for around 2 years we went there, but we weren't members or nothing, and so we weren't tied to nothing. And we go there. I really like to go there because our kids had a place to be with kids that I trusted. It was just a good community to be with.
Mm-hmm.
And then really like that. And then when it came down to the point where, all right, it's time that we either join or don't join, then they were always talking about faith over religion and all that. But when it came down to it, they still had the rules where you had to wear a dress, which she does. She wears a dress every day. But it's not that that's the rule.
It's
We
not
gotta
that I
do that.
have to wear.
Right.
It's free.
I mean, the Bible talks about wearing modest clothes.
Right.
A dress is one of the most modest clothing for a woman to wear. So we do most of the time. But there is nothing wrong with a modest jeans.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Around your skin.
yeah, because it's the Bible. So when it came down to it, they had a rule that you had to wear a dress. You had just stuff like they sat separate. The women on
You
one
had to
side
wear
of the
a head
church.
covering.
You had to wear a head covering.
Okay, so the Mennonites still had some traditions.
They had that they
Yeah.
really stuck to, even though we don't have rules.
Yeah.
But they kind of did.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't for us.
Yeah. So you knew the Mennonite wasn't going to satisfy either.
I like going to church there, and I like the togetherness.
The
Liked it.
community.
Yep,
Yeah.
I love the community.
And
But
that's
when it
kinda what
came
we're
down
searching
and they
for.
wanted to tie you down that this is what you got to keep,
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not for me. It can't. It will not align with what I'm reading.
Yeah.
And then we wanted to move out of the state.
Mm-hmm.
And our big concern was, all right, we started having a Bible study in Minnesota with the ex-Amish. They get together,
Okay.
and it was really fulfilling to us.
That's
We didn't even
awesome.
hardly go to church anymore. We went to that Bible study.
Yeah.
So then when we moved, we're like, all right, now we want to find a place.
Yeah.
The church.
Can't find a, we just gonna move down here and hope for the best. And finally, I was like, well, God is gonna just take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
We're moving, and we're gonna find the best spot that suits for us, our lifestyle and all that.
Right.
And we come driving back this road, and it is over the hill and through the woods. And
Well, you've been back there.
yeah, we had the road name, no address, no realtor meeting us, but I had found this place, and I'm skipping a bunch on how we were traveling down here.
Right.
But anyway, we come back in there to this place, and we find where we think the place is, but we're like, have no service to find property lines.
Mm-hmm.
I said, let's go up to that church that I saw a sign back there for.
Ah.
I said, it's up a dead end, so it's probably not open anymore. We drive up there, we're sitting there, we got a little bit of service, and we're taking screenshots of maps. And a vehicle pulls up, and they kind of drive by, and they back up, and they're, hey, how you doing? It's our preacher. Where they go to church now.
Yep.
And we talked for over an hour. They just welcomed us and took us down to their house and got us phone numbers and this and that.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole time, at this point, we're really into what God wants. That's what we want. What God wants is what we want.
Yeah.
And when we got done talking to these people, and they talked about what they believe in, And then I said to her, let's go look at this place. I'm really interested in this place now. We got good neighbors.
You already had a church before you got your place.
Yes,
picked out.
the church was sitting there. And I'm like, I didn't even, when I first pulled up to that place, I'm like, it's not what I thought it was. But when I saw that church, I came back and the church, that place looked 20 times better.
Wow.
Now I went to work and I looked at the place and I'm like, this can work. This is what I want. It had almost everything I dreamed of except a spring. I wanted a spring.
Yeah.
It had everything but that.
Yeah.
And we looked at it. We went home, prayed about this thing, and from that day on, that's what we worked for. And we have been so blessed by that church. We got great neighbors. God has sent us amazing people.
Awesome.
Like,
It's definitely
And
God
with-
sent how that place all came about. Like how many places in were you? Like you were looking online.
I was online. I was 600 and some properties in, where you normally would have quit before you got that far.
Right.
And that place popped up, and I'm like, way too good to be true. Like the price was just, I couldn't believe it. And I sent it to her just so I could find it again. And then when we ended up back down there, I was like, let's go look at this place. Not thinking that it's still something that will work. And there God sent us, and we lived in a camper. Like we were planning on coming down, building something, and moving in. And God led us to buying a camper, moving in a camper. And I don't think if God would have sent us all our neighbors that we could have hung on to that lifestyle that long. We had people checking on us, helping us so much that it's just not possible. That's why when people talk about that there is no God, no way.
Yeah, you look at your life and
No
how everything
way.
played out, it's impossible
Oh,
to
I
say
know.
there ain't no God.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
That's what I say every day. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
The neighbors that God sent us is definitely like we didn't even plan that. Like
Right.
Right, we didn't
God
plan it all
took care
planned
of
out.
those
I know,
details.
I know. That was our biggest word. Everybody's like, oh, be careful going down there to West Virginia. They got these rednecks down there, and you drive back in there, you're going to get shot on the spot. I mean, we have our neighbors. That I see nothing. The stuff people talk about West Virginia,
Yeah. You didn't see that.
we don't see that at all.
So acceptance and love.
It's the acceptance, and obviously we got a great holler where
Yeah.
we live.
Oh yeah. I got lost in that holler.
Yep. And there's others there. I haven't seen it anywhere in West Virginia, but I'm sure there's places in West Virginia that it would not be okay for us to live.
Right. I'm sure there is.
We got sent to a good spot.
Yeah.
I mean,
God definitely gave you guys a good spot.
yeah, and I give God the glory every day because I could have ended up the other side of the state
Right.
in some old drug nest. I'm not.
Exactly.
I got a great spot.
And that's who I interviewed, guys. Some of you guys will remember the clip I done with Eli Miller, and
Yep.
we ate at you guys' plate. And thanks for the good Amish food. You're still able to make.
I still have Amish in me. Yes, we
Oh, yeah.
constantly like cooking.
And then
stuff.
we went to their church, and I shared my testimony at their church. So, all right, guys, thank you very, very much for
Yep.
everything that you share. I know we could go for hours.
Oh, yeah.
But there's
I can
like
back
lots
up and
of
add.
details that I'm like I could add and just like,
Maybe we'll do a follow-up sometime.
Yeah, we will definitely.
All right, guys, thank you very much.
You bet.
Thank you all for watching.